So thank you. Hopefully my time just starts right now, okay? Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Allison Lindsay. I live in Beaver Creek, and I'm currently running for school board in Beaver Creek. But most importantly, more than anything else, I am a mom. I have 5 children. 2, as you see, are here, Esther and Sarah. I am here to ask the board to rescind Resolution 20. And I call on the board to adopt the resolution to promote academic excellence in K-12 education. First, let me say that racism is real, and I condemn it. Racism, however, is not the root cause of the inequalities we see in Ohio schools. I say it again. Racism is not the root cause of the inequalities in our school. I know what I have just said is considered forbidden in some circles and possibly even heretical, but the truth needs to be told. Why does the truth need to be told? Because children's futures are at stake. If we, the policymakers, misdiagnose the problem, then it doesn't matter what solutions we propose. At best, the outcomes will either miss the mark, or at worst, they will exacerbate the problem. I was so struck by the Bixby's. Those are the solutions that we should be looking at. Please take into consideration what she suggested. After reading Resolution 20, I understand that many on the board believe the reason inequalities exist in our school is because of white supremacy culture, hate speech, and hate crimes in our school. Please show me the through line from that to the resolution and how it will solve the problem. And if I understand correctly, the only way to overcome this is by realizing that you and me and everyone in our schools has implicit racial bias. Then, after we have been trained to see our implicit biases, and only then will the disparities between students finally disappear. I am letting you know that most people find this proposal rather ridiculous. And there are a good number of people who find it offensive. Some have spoken before me, and there are some that will be speaking after me, and they will say, they will agree. It takes a broad brush to entire groups of people and essentially says that our minority students have no agency or ability to succeed outside of what you and me and our schools do to overcome unconscious bias. I cannot think of a more disempowering message to send to our students. You have stripped them of their God-given gifts, talents, intelligence, and agency. You have reduced them to a racial essence. You have told them that their success is dependent upon what people outside of them think of them. That is wrong. I recently watched the documentary America Lost. It documents 3 struggling American cities: Stockton, California. I grew up in California. Memphis, Tennessee, and our own Youngstown, Ohio. At one point, a middle-aged woman in this documentary, who is black, with 2 teenage daughters, gets to the heart of the problem we are discussing today: how to help disadvantaged minority students succeed in school. She didn't have a fancy degree, and she didn't need one. She was wise and understood the world, and this is what she told her daughters, and this is what is absent from your proposals to help our students that need help. She said, stay close as a family. Nothing can take the place of a family in ensuring children succeed. This is not in your proposal. 2, study hard, stay out of trouble, get good grades, graduate, and go to college. Nothing can take the place of an education to pull someone out of poverty. And 3, get married and then have children. This mother knew what she was talking about. But as I watched, you know what broke my heart when I watched this documentary? There are millions of students in this country who will never get a chance to reach their potential. And it isn't because of racism. It's because they are forced to stay in failing, underperforming schools. If we want to address the issue of racial disparities in education, let's start by broadening ed choice. Parents care the most about their child's success. The more freedom they have, the better educational outcomes we will see for all of our students, including our minority students. I watched the board's 2-part Zoom session from February. Excuse me, it upset me. I'm a little emotional right now. I watched the 2-part session from February, and I was appalled to hear superintendents blame their failing schools on ed choice, as if those parents, almost all of whom were minority families, choosing to take their child's education into their own hands, somehow caused the problems in those superintendents' schools. No, those parents understand that if they want the gap to close and if they want their child to succeed, then their child needs a quality education. Their child does not need the state board tripping over themselves to prove that they are doing the work. I'm being pointed, but I say this respectfully. I don't claim to have all the answers, but more educational freedom for minority parents and families is a good place to start. This will do more than all of the nice sounding resolutions ever can. I also offer some suggestions.
I'm going to you have passed the 5-minute mark, so I would ask you to conclude, please.
Okay, I just would recommend these books right here. There's more than one way to think about racial inequities, and there are a lot of really good suggestions in here. I've read all these books. I suggest that the board read them too. We can deal with this problem, and there's more than one way to think about this. So, thank you.
Are there any questions? Mrs. Fessler and Dr. Collins.
Thank you for your testimony. I need new glasses. There's no way I can read those titles from here. Could you please tell me what the name of those books would be?
Narrative of the Life by Frederick Douglass. Up from Slavery by Booker T. Washington. He is my American hero. The Strange Career of Jim Crow by C. Van Woodward. Martin Luther King Jr. called this book the Bible of the Civil Rights Movement. A Self-Portrait in Black and White by Thomas Chatterton Williams. Walter Williams' Race and Economics, and Discrimination and Disparities by Thomas Sowell. I just want to say, someone talked about the GI Bill earlier and that it wasn't available to minorities in America. That's not true. Thomas Sowell is a black scholar, and he went to school, law school, Harvard, I believe, on the GI Bill. So those are just some of my books I brought with me, and I've read them all.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Collins.
Thank you for speaking. All the way over here in the corner. So I just want to challenge your thinking just a little bit. There's a research study out of Duke with 10,000 kids back in 2009, 2011. And what they were studying was, did teachers' beliefs impact how students performed? This was called a gifted education study. So what they did was they told some teachers that their kids were gifted, even though they weren't gifted. And you know what they found was that what teachers believed about their kids actually impacted their achievement. So the teachers that had kids in their classroom who may not have been gifted but were told that those kids were gifted saw higher achievement from those students than the actual gifted students whose teacher was told that they weren't gifted. So there was an article also in September, actually a local school district, Lexington Schools, where their school board was hearing from parents because a teacher had said, "You're not that black," to a student.
Yes,
so
I know what you're talking
about. Yes, I would just challenge you to think about how that implicit bias, whether it's gifted students, students with special needs, ELL students, or racial diversity students, how those biases and those perceptions, research tells us that they make a difference for kids.
I absolutely agree with that. My daughter Esther over there, she's going to be 5 in December. She has Down syndrome. I understand what it means to have people have preconceived notions about your children, and that it's not true. I think I am aware of what you're talking about with the mother in Lexington, and I think she was upset because of the broad brush stroke that a lot of educators put over her child because he was black, and there was just this assumption that he wasn't going to perform well, and she actually, I think, stands really in opposition to these broad brush teachings about race in our schools, and that our students somehow won't succeed because of this broad brush idea. It's been said today that we need to be treating people as individuals. Again, I cannot think of a more powerful testimony or witness to this than the Bixby's. We need to be teaching and treating our students as individuals. There is nothing in Resolution 20 that teaches our minority students as if they are individuals. It doesn't treat them as individuals. So I think we have a lot in common, but we have to treat our students as if individuals. That's what we need to do.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. LaRue and then Mr. Shea.
I compliment you on the autobiography of Frederick Douglass is one of the great, you want the first edition, you want the first time you read it. He wrote multiple editions. That's a great read, as well as about the first 90 pages of Up From Slavery. So those are very good books. And I appreciate, as a historian, I appreciate the, I appreciate those are excellent reads, whether in the classroom or wherever. So I applaud you for those books.
Thank you.
Mr. Shea.
Thank you, President Kohler. I just, in case folks didn't pick up on it, I think Ms. Lindsay was referring to the Buzz, I think it's the Busbys, the mother and son team that led us off pretty earlier today. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for being here and for your comments, for supporting this resolution. The tenacity it takes to pack your kids up in the car, drive from Beaver Creek and sit here for going on, 3 hours? I mean, how do you? They're the best kids I've ever seen. I mean, it's incredible.
Thank you.
But I thank you for that, and thank you for fighting for your children and for the children of Beaver Creek. And I think those children and parents would be blessed and so fortunate to have you representing them on the board. So I wish you all the best.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Dr. Miranda?
Thank you for being here. I also just want to challenge you on one thing about vouchers. Research actually shows that students that use vouchers to attend private schools do less well on tests than similar students that do not attend private schools. So a lot of times we think vouchers in private schools are the answer, but the research is a little muddy on that. So just because a poor kid goes to a private school with a voucher does not mean they necessarily do better. The research actually does not show that.
There's some conflicting evidence on that. I understand what you're saying. A large part of success when it comes to vouchers is the parents, essentially. It is. So I would, again, encourage, this book goes deep into education. Everyone, please read Discrimination and Disparities by Thomas Sowell, especially his part on KIP, which is the some of the voucher programs in New York State. There are some schools and some things that have been done across the United States that have really improved education for our minority students, and it has nothing to do with Resolution 20, and we should be looking at that better. So KIP, it's talked about in this book by Sowell. There's some good suggestions there. KIPP.
Thank
KIP.
you. Ms. Johnson?
Who's Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for coming today. I just wanted to mention, you made a statement when you talked about Ed Choice, and you began to defend the parents, saying they just want what's best for their children. With the people I know who were against Ed Choice, the issue was always how Ed Choice was funded. And it was never with, ooh, those terrible parents, they're using Ed Choice. Ed Choice, before this most recent Fair School Funding Plan was passed, was funded by taking money directly from school districts. And so it created a parent against parent, so to speak, because both sets of parents want what's best for their children. So I just wanted to clarify that. It was a big issue with Ed Choice, was always it was funded by taking money from school districts.
Well, no, it's not taking money from the school district. That's just one way to look at it. It's the money is following the student, and schools that are not performing well should get their act together so that parents want to keep their kid in their school. I mean, competition is a good thing, so it's just a different way to think about it.
Yeah, I'm not going to debate that with you, because if money is being taken from the public school to send the child someplace else, then that becomes an issue.
Well, the public schools, which I'm a product of public education, and both of my teachers are public school, or both my parents are public school teachers, so no quibble there. The house I grew up in, the mortgage was paid by public teacher salaries. But public schools, if they're not performing well, then they need to fix whatever the reason and the problem is, and don't put that on the shoulders of our students and our families. That's not their responsibility. That's the school's responsibility.
Okay, Mrs. Fessler, I think, yeah, we're past 10 minutes, so I'll give Mrs. Fessler an opportunity.
I'm sorry, did you say your name was Allison?
Yes, I have two first names. I answer to both, whichever you want to call me. I won't be offended. My first name is Allison, and my last name is Lindsay.
Oh, okay. Allison Lindsay.
Allison Lindsay. Two first names, also two last names. Allison's a last name, too.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here this afternoon. We
And
appreciate it.
thank you for letting me go. I do appreciate that, and for being so kind to my children. Thank you.
Certainly. Our next speaker this afternoon is Jeff Wensing.